This is the Fave 5 podcast, episode 14, where we talk to friends and family and interview them about their background. And then we get into the topics of the Fave 5 newsletter, which are books, food, music, sports, and humor. And I'm very pleased today to be joined by my good friend Jeri Johnson. Jeri, welcome to the Fave 5 podcast.
Thank you, Stan. I'm excited to be here.
Jeri and I first met, I think it would have been in 1997, if I'm doing my math right, when our boys were in the sixth grade. Does that sound right?
It does sound right. Well, yeah, I guess sixth grade. Yeah.
They tried out for the Northville Broncos travel baseball team, and they didn't either of them make the first team,
Right.
which we refer to as the A team.
Yep.
And embarrassingly enough, they didn't put them on the second team, which was a class of younger kids who were good but playing up. But then they created what we called the C team, and both our sons, Roger and Greg Johnson, were on that team. And so I was at a game early on in the season. I think it was probably out in Dexter, someplace like that. And that's where I met Jeri, the mom of one of the fellow players. And it's often how in life we meet our friends. It's through
Mhm.
the activities of our kids. So I once
Absolutely.
time computed that, when we first moved to Michigan, most of our friends had to do with my work. And a few years later, all of our friends had to do with our kids. So that there's a transition. And certainly Jeri is one of those friends I made through that. And we've had a good friendship ever since.
Yes. And I remember that first meeting because I believe it was snowing and we're watching baseball, drinking hot chocolate. And then John Wolford, you and I went out for drinks after. So that was quite a game.
Early season baseball always involved bitter cold
Yeah.
and made you question why you were doing it at all.
Right,
We
right.
persisted, and the
We
years have
did.
gone by. Our sons have turned out pretty well. So I guess that baseball team was a good influence on them.
Absolutely.
So we're going to start out, Jeri, and talking about your background. So start out with where were you born and when were you born?
So I was born December 5th, 1956 in Joliet, Illinois.
And what's your ancestry?
Oh boy. Well, believe it or not, because I don't look it, but I'm mostly Northern European or Irish, Scotch, and a little bit of Austrian, but mostly Irish and Scotch. So I think I was a result of the Spaniards invading over there.
And you were born in Joliet. Where have you lived since then?
Okay, so this is quite a list. And actually, I had forgotten three locations. And then I went back and went, no, no, I got even more. But so born in Joliet and then moved to actually downtown Chicago and lived there for 6 years. After that, moved to Naperville for high school. And then from there, went to college in Champaign-Urbana and then came to Michigan. We lived first in Dearborn and then Northville 6 years later. And then there was this period of time that I sort of forgot about, but Stan and I bonded during this period of time too, because we moved to St. Louis for a short period and then left St. Louis, moved to DC, left DC, moved to Kalamazoo, and then back to our original home in Northville and have been here ever since. So.
So what was it like during that period where you were nomadic, moving from city to city?
Very, very stressful and kind of frightening. And that's where you and Barb came in because you made it a lot less traumatic. But Kyle was one of the ones that was exited from GM during the bankruptcy period. And so he's in his mid 50s, always had a job at GM since he graduated from college. So it was like, oh my gosh, now what? And so he put together a resume and quickly got another job in St. Louis. And of course, he was anxious to be employed, so took the first job that came his way, and that job was with Solutia, which was a really, we didn't know much about it, but it was not a bad or a good company to be in because they were just coming out of a bankruptcy. But Stan and Barb helped us moved to St. Louis and settled in, and we loved it there actually. But like I said, it was short-lived because Solutia ended up being bought, and then we thought, okay, now what? And our kids were living in DC, so decided to go to DC to be closer to them. And then they moved. So Katie moved to Boston and Greg came back to Michigan to do his residency. So we're like, well, this isn't good. So we started looking, and Kyle then got a job back in Michigan at Fetzer Institute and was there for 3 glorious years. It was a lot of fun, great job. But then that ended, and we ended up back in Northville because Kyle took a job with Ford. So yeah, it was wild and crazy, but now that I reflect back, it was really fun. And we got to live in different places for a bit.
But you've lived in Northville for a long time, right?
Well, yes, exactly 35 years.
Okay.
So yeah, because I'm all of a sudden I went, oh, we've lived in Michigan for 40 years, but or maybe even more than that. But definitely 35 in Michigan in this same house.
So do you
So
think of yourself as being somebody from Michigan or from Illinois or both?
Michigan.
Yeah.
Although it's interesting you say that because when we go back to Illinois, for whatever reason, I always say we're going home.
Hmm.
So I refer to Illinois as home, but yeah, we haven't lived in Illinois since we were 18 years old. So this is home for
Yeah.
sure.
Kind of like I refer to St. Louis as my hometown, but I wasn't
Right.
born there. I just lived there for a long time. But I
Right.
lived in Michigan longer than anywhere else. So I guess we're Michiganders through and through now.
Exactly. And proud to be, right, Stan?
Proud indeed. So who was in your family when you were growing up?
Well, of course, I had a mom and a dad, and but they divorced when I was 5, so that sort of changed the dynamic. But I did grow up for a period of time with my 2 brothers, Jack and Greg. Jack is 10 years older than me, and Greg is 8 years older than me. So Jack pretty much when I was 5 or 6 joined the Marines. And so he wasn't as, big a presence in my life as Greg was. Greg ended up kind of being around more until he graduated from college and he joined the National Guard to avoid going to Vietnam. But anyway, and then Melissa, my sister, um, was born 17 years later after me. So I was kind of the baby for many years. And then my dad remarried Natalie, and they had a little girl when I was a junior in high school, Melissa. So Melissa and I, once again, we didn't live together all that long, really only a couple years. And then I went off to college and we've remained close, but we didn't have the experience of growing up together.
And did you have any extended family living near you?
I did actually. I was thinking about that because I was one of the lucky ones that knew my great grandparents for a decent chunk of time. But I definitely had my mom's mom and dad, Grandma and Grandpa Farner. They were wonderful. And then my dad's mom and dad, Grandma and Grandpa McCambridge. And then um, Grandma Staley and Grandpa Bert, they were my mom's grandparents. And then we also had the McCarthys, which were my dad's grandparents. So, I mean, it was a short period of time, but I did have, what would that be? 2, 4, 6, 8, 8 grandparents alive.
Impressive.
Yeah, it was. It was. And my family does quite have a lot of longevity. So,
That's good to have.
yeah, yeah, it is.
So,
Comes in handy.
what did your parents do?
Well, okay. My mom was initially a stay-at-home mom, raising my 2 brothers and then me. And then my parents divorced when I was, I'm always a little blurry on this, but I think when I was 5 or 6. And my mom then really, I mean, I think her whole life she felt very held back from having a career because she was never able to go to college. She and my dad got married during World War II on a leave, and she just never, they didn't have the money or the wherewithal to go to college. And she was very bright. She was a member of the National Honor Society. So she always felt very badly that she wasn't able to get a degree. So after the divorce, she decided she was going to make it as a model. And we moved to Chicago, and she was a very beautiful woman, and she did make it as a model on the Miracle Mile on Michigan Avenue. She did a lot of freelance modeling for Nordstrom and Saks Fifth Avenue and Bloomingdale's, and so definitely had a pretty steady income at that point in time. And then she was offered a job at Saks Fifth Avenue as the fashion coordinator there. And she would work with very wealthy, famous people and help them pick out wardrobes. So that's what she did until she passed away. And then my dad, he was interesting too. Once again, no degree, um, and really had to work hard to move up the ranks, but he obviously, right out of high school, went to World War II, got out of World War II, thankfully, and went to work for the electric company. And that's one of the funniest stories he used to tell us, because what he would do is go door to door and hand out light bulbs for free to get people's electric bills to go up. So I'm like, oh my God, what are we? He said he walked around with a case of light bulbs and just handed them out, and everybody took them, of course. And, then their electric bill went up. But then he got his real estate license, became a broker, opened his own real estate company in Joliet. And Joliet was in a very transitional time, and the market just crashed there, and housing crashed. And so he lost that business, and so had to kind of start over. And he took a job with Standard Oil, and sold motor oil to local gas stations. It was a very difficult time. He and my mom were divorced then. And, he just, I look back and I think it must have been rough. But he worked his way up. He became part of the Amoco Motor Club, where back in the day, it was sort of like AAA, where they would chart out your trips that you were taking, and he just became their spokesman. He was a very personable guy, very outgoing, and so they called him Mr. Motor Club. So he did that for several years, and then the cool thing was they were building the new Standard Oil building downtown Chicago, and they found out that he had a broker's license that he never let expire. So he became the vice president of real estate for that building and rented it all out. And that's how he retired after doing that. So, but both my mom and my dad always said, we did as best we could, and you guys need to go to college. So it was ingrained in us from very early that college wasn't an option, it was a necessity. So,
So what did you like to do when you were in school?
well, I'm going to laugh now because initially I liked to chase boys in the playground. I mean, that was like the sport out, at recess. We would just chase boys and trap them. And I think back and go, oh my God, I still haven't stopped. So, anyway, but most of my elementary years, I was in a Catholic school in Chicago. You couldn't really go to the public schools, they weren't exactly safe. So I went to a Catholic school, and we played on pavement. So the options were a little different. And we played a lot of jacks, and we played marbles, and we became very proficient at jump rope. So I did a lot of that. And then I lived in high rise buildings, and I remember, it's everything was harder in a high rise, but we would play spy, and we'd go into the stairwells and we'd peek out on the different floors and try and, see something intriguing. And so we did a lot of that. Then by middle school, I was old enough to take the buses by myself, and we would do a lot of the museums. Like we would go to the Natural History Museum and Science and Industry and and the Art Institute. And I just think back now and think, wow, it was really kind of neat that I would be able to just after school go to one of these great museums and kind of hang out in the halls and so, that was fun. I remember always going to a soda fountain and having French fries and a shake after school. And I think back on that and go, yeah, well, that was probably not great, but we did do a lot of that. And then one of the bigger things I did in middle school was go to the Cubs games because I lived very near Wrigley Field and I'll tell that story later, but I became a bleacher bum. It was only $1 to go to the games, and all my friends, we just loved going, and we'd keep score and get autographs. And yeah, so that was sort of middle school. And then high school. It's just a lot of hanging out. I'm from a graduating class of 1,000, so it was really hard to make a team, or I, of course, tried out for cheerleading multiple years and never made it. So it was just a lot of hanging out with friends at Little League games, football games, also parties on the weekend. We'd always find out who was having a party and, inadvertently show up at this party that we didn't even know the person. But anyway, that was fun. And yeah, we'd drive a lot. When we were able to get our license, we would drive around a lot and just head to McDonald's or wherever. It was just a lot of that.
So what did you want to be when you grew up back then?
Well, you know, I don't think I ever had huge aspirations, but I would say a fashion designer. I always loved fashion, I guess, because of my mom's influence, and I had a knack for um, putting things together. And but I laugh now because my mom always dressed me very fashion forward. And when I moved to Naperville in high school, I remember my freshman year, I wore knickers to school because they were the in thing at the time. Everybody's like, thought, oh man, she's different. Because here I come and I'm feeling so cool. But knickers were not popular in Naperville. So anyway, but I always thought I wanted to be in something with the fashion field.
Where'd you go to college?
So, Kyle, my husband, and I started dating our senior year. And not that I chose my college based on Kyle, but it certainly didn't, it wasn't a negative that he was going there. But University of Illinois is where I went. And I look back on that too, and I think that is the only school I applied to. And I was actually waitlisted. It was sort of like here in Michigan, you applied to your top school and then you'd apply to a couple other schools. But I just applied there. And so when I was waitlisted, I thought, oh man, this could not be good. But I ended up getting in and, it's all good.
And what'd you study there?
Well, it was an interesting road to what I ended up with, but I did start out in pharmacy. Now, why? I was good in math and science, and so I thought it would be a good career. So I started into that, but I found out very quickly. Well, first of all, I found out organic chem was a requirement, and I was like, oh, God, I don't know. And so you went 2 years to Champaign Urbana, University of Illinois, but then 3 years up at the Chicago Circle campus. And I didn't want to leave Kyle. I didn't want to leave the university. So I quickly decided I'm not doing that. And then for a maybe semester, I don't even think it was that long, I went into fashion design and realized right away that I had to take sewing classes. I'm like thinking I'm just going to have a sketch pad and, some fabric choices. But oh no, no, no. You had to take tailoring, you had to take, It was great. I mean, I think it was a good thing, but you had to take fabric sciences. And so I quickly said, yeah, no, I'm not doing that either. So then I switched, which was a coup back in the day, to the business college because it was not easy to get into. And I don't think a lot of women were choosing that at the time. So I got into that school and I quickly fell in love with economics and finance. So I ended up 3 years at University of Illinois with econ finance and then actually graduated when we moved here from U of M Dearborn with an econ finance degree.
What was your first job?
Well, how about first interview? Well, I had when we moved here, I had Katie, and she was 3 months old when we moved. Kyle got a job with GM, and so I, by the time I had to wait a year to be in state, and so by the time I graduated, Katie was about 18 months old, and my first interview was with Folgers. I'll never forget it, the coffee company, and I go to this interview and they're like, "So, how do you feel about travel?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm not interested in travel." And it became very clear in the interview that I wasn't motivated to work at all. So, so I ended up doing what I was passionate about. I was a stay-at-home mom for many years. But the one thing I will say, I always had a part-time job. So I never really ever left the workforce. I was always employed at some level or another. And, I remember in Dearborn, I was at Papagallo and then Jacobson's. And then we moved to Northville. I was at Preferences and then Moraine Elementary, which then morphed into what I would consider my career, the chamber and the DDA.
Tell us about that.
So yes, one interesting thing, the the chamber, my first day of work was 9/11. So I remember getting ready in the morning and excited. It's my first day of work. So I was focused on getting ready. And I get in the car and I had the radio on and I, heard that a plane they thought had flown in to one of the towers. And I was like, oh, that's weird. So I get to work and honestly, so strange. My first assignment on that day was to go to all the hotels and bring in the local area and bring them information about the upcoming Victorian Festival. And so off I go, and it was still unfolding. Nobody knew what was happening. But as I was going from hotel to hotel, the lobbies were getting fuller and fuller, and everybody's around the TVs. And all of a sudden, I'm like, and I'm asking to talk to the manager to give them information. And I realized like within 2 hours, this was not cool. So I headed back to the chamber and they were like, oh, yeah, no, everybody's going home. And Kyle was at the Renaissance Center in Detroit. And I remember calling him like, please come home. This is scary. But anyway, I digress. So I worked at the chamber for 17 years. I was their member services director. So I was in charge of getting membership to join the chamber and
And the chamber
membership,
is the Northfield Chamber of
the
Commerce.
Northville Chamber of Commerce. And, it I always thought chambers were information clearinghouses, which we were for the community. That was definitely one role. But the other role was for businesses to join to help promote their business. And so I would go out to all the local businesses and pursue them to join the chamber. And we'd have networking events that I was in charge of and all kinds of social activities. And so that was my main job for most of the time. And then the chamber started doing a lot of events, and I became very event focused as well. So anything that happened downtown Northville, we'd have band concerts, Victorian Festival, we'd have all kinds of events that happened in our charming downtown community, and I would be responsible mostly to raise money for those events through businesses, and then of course day of that kind of stuff, all the prep work. So yeah, that was my career then, and then I morphed into working for the Downtown Development Authority. Lori Ward was my boss, fantastic boss, and that became very, very fascinating because there was a lot that happened during my short career there. But yeah, I was the marketing and communications director there. So I did a lot of fundraising for band concerts and different events that went in. But I will expand upon that later in my story of something I'm proud of. So.
What did you like doing the best when you were working for those two organizations?
Well, it was very social. And as you know, I'm a very social animal. So I loved mentoring new businesses that came into town. And, there's just a lot to navigate when you're opening a new business. And, there was some hand holding because they weren't getting their permits or, they're just feeling overwhelmed. So I would say getting to know all the businesses in our community and their owners or managers was definitely, for me, the highlight.
What's a hobby or an interest that you have?
Oh boy. So I would say, now that we're retired, I would say traveling would be high on the list. Limited amount of time, got to see it all. And we try and stagger between United States and, abroad. But yeah, time's ticking. So travel. But really, I love to be with friends. I just feel very, at ease in social settings. And as you know about our sham group, our discussion dinners that are just wonderful and have really been a great thing for Kyle and I. And then our euchre clubs and book clubs. So those things are a lot of fun for me. And then, of course, I like to read. Book club really encourages me to read. I've never been an avid reader because I'm a slow reader. So I always sort of would get discouraged. But, um, with book club, I feel motivated because I want to be part of the discussion. And I have started enjoying reading more. And then bike riding, Kyle and I love to take bike rides. And so, yeah, those are the things I do mostly.
So you mentioned you're a social person. You've made a lot of friends over the years. I think you've kept most of those friends. What do you think the key to having good friends is?
Well, the effort involved. I think that it's, for me, every once in a while I'll get discouraged because like I'm the one reaching out and I'm the one planning. And but then I think, well, it's okay because it's my need and I enjoy it. So if I have to be, and I'm sure you feel this way too, Stan, if I have to be the instigator, so be it. But yeah, I just think it's energy for me. I just enjoy it. And uh, because I've kept so many friends through the years that, although not as far back as you go, I don't have elementary school friends. Um, although, well, I'll tell you this on a side note at some point, but after my mom died, I lived with a girl, Missy Costello. She was my best friend in eighth grade, and they welcomed me in for the 6 months between my mom dying and graduating from eighth grade. And I just found her. So I'm very excited to reach out to her and reconnect because we lost touch. We just lost touch and did our own lives. Um, but yeah, I think the friends that we've made in Michigan have been lifelong friends and will continue to be lifelong friends. So it's been great.
All right, let's go on to the five topics now. And you indicated you like to read. So what do you like to read?
So I'm a fiction girl. I mean, I really like to kind of escape. I don't really want to read a biography about somebody that's gone or I don't know. I just, I mean, that's not my thing, but fiction I love. And, I've heard other people mention Ann Patchett, but she is a definite favorite. I love her and her writing style. And, I think you can escape with her books. But one of the books, These Precious Days, was sort of I don't know if I'd call it a biography, but more about her and her life. And so I really enjoyed that. But lately, which is so crazy because, like I told you, I'm a slow reader, and these books are long. But The Covenant of Water and Cutting for Stone by Abraham, how do you say it?
Verghese.
Verghese
Yeah.
have been mesmerizing for me, and I just love both of those books. And I'm finishing Cutting for Stone now, and so yeah, that has been great.
So the book club sounds like something that you really enjoy. What's that been like being in that book club?
It's been great. Only, I mean, some of the books are epic fails, and some of them are really, every once in a while, we're like, oh my God. But the friendships, again, once again, that's what I'm motivated about. And, we really have bonded and become just a group in and of itself. And, like, now we do social things together. We'll go to see a movie um, or go out to celebrate the holidays, whatever. So it's just a great group of women that I would have never bonded with if it weren't for the book club. So, and we're all pretty committed. It's amazing. We've all been together now for many, many years. And I do like the discipline of reading a book every month. I do like that. So,
All right, what do you like to eat?
oh God, you're going to judge me, but you
I'm not
might
going to
know
judge
this.
you.
You might know this. I'm a French fry girl. Oh my God, give me a good French fry and
Yeah.
Heinz ketchup and I'm in heaven. And of course, go along with that, a great burger. Oh yeah, that's high on my list. And then I do love a great piece of fish. And of course, I love pasta. So those would be my top foods. I'm not a huge fruit eater. I'll eat fruit, but it's like, I mean, I'm amazed at people who love fruit and vegetables. Like vegetables can go too. I mean, they're okay, but
Well,
I,
there's nothing wrong with liking French fries.
yeah. And if I find a restaurant that has a good French fry, it's like, okay,
So
I'll be
where
back.
is your favorite place for French fries?
Oh man. That's a hard question. I've had so many good French fries over the years, but I do think Joe's Coney Island downtown here makes a good French fry. But um, Scalawags, which I'll mention in my favorite restaurant, it's in Mackinac City. They have a great French fry. So.
All right, well, let's get into that. What restaurants you want to
Oh
recommend?
gosh, Stan, it's hard to talk to you about restaurants because you're just I often look back and I was trying to remember the name of the restaurant that you took us to for that chef's dinner
Oh, that was Tribute.
tribute. Oh my God. Honestly, if I reflect back, that was one of my best dining experiences. It was so much fun and the food was great. But anyway, if I ever got you to the UP again, there's a couple places up there. On our way up, we always stop at this fish place called Scalawags, and they have the best white fish, of course, deep fried, but not a lot of breading, just perfectly done, and of course, French fries. So that's a favorite. And then well, there was, it just burned down, but they're rebuilding it, a restaurant in Escanaba called the Stone House, and it is just one of these throwbacks from the 50s where you could get like a gin and tonic for $4 and beer for three, but
Yeah.
wonderful food. And, it came with everything. Like you got your entree, but then you also got a choice of potato and your salad and your soup. Now everything's a la carte, but at the Stonehouse. And they have a white fish béarnaise, I think it is. It's a lemon butter. Oh, and anyway, it's really incredible. So those two up in the UP. And then, around here, I don't know, I struggled because I'm not as familiar. I mean, when we go into Detroit, for pizza, blanking
Supino?
Supino's, love Supino's pizza in Detroit. But Detroit restaurants, I always enjoy them, but I never really venture back or go
Yeah.
regularly. But around here, I'm kind of enamored with the Dixboro project at the moment. It's sort of pricey, but I just love their atmosphere in there, and they have good food, and I don't know, it's just relaxing when I go there. So we like that. And then Carl's Cabin, which I would have never said probably 2 or 3 years ago, but they also burned down and rebuilt, and it's so much, it's just aesthetically more pleasing. But their food, anytime I've been there, the food has been really great. So that's kind of a favorite right now. And it's a little outside of Northville, but you can get there. And of course, Ann Arbor has lots of good restaurants that we go to on occasion, but nothing that jumps out.
Moving on to music, do you have a favorite song or a musician or concert
Um,
or album?
of course, of course, of course.
Okay.
My favorite song is "In My Life" by the
Yes.
Beatles. I don't know why, but it has been my favorite love song, wedding song, just song for many years. And the words resonate with me, the tune resonates. And of course, the Beatles would definitely be one of my top groups growing up. And I actually got to go to the Beatles concert in Chicago. So that was like a real coup. But I can't say it was a great concert because you didn't hear it.
Right.
I mean, there was so much screaming
Yeah.
that and ambulances taking girls away. And I was little. I was with my brothers. I think it was a birthday gift for my brothers. And I just remember looking around going, this is crazy. But yeah, the Animals were the backup group, but we didn't hear them either. Everybody was screaming from the time we got there till the time we
And
left.
where was that held?
That was held at White Sox Stadium. What
Oh,
is
Comiskey Park.
Comiskey Park?
Okay.
Comiskey Park. So yeah, and it had to be. So I was probably 6, so it had to be early 60s. What would that
Right.
be? 62, 63,
Well, 64 maybe, because they didn't come to
64.
the US till then.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, it was early on in their career. They had the typical Beatle haircut, but yeah, so they were one of my favorite groups. But overall, unique voice that has always resonated with me would be James Taylor. I've always loved his voice. I think it's so unique and different, and his songs are beautiful. You've Got a Friend, Fire and Rain, How Sweet It Is, Suzanne. I mean, there's just so many that I listened to over the years that I loved. And then another band, Indigo Girls, was a huge part of my life for, I guess it would be when I really wasn't listening to music in my, late 20s, early 30s, or, it was more, is it, I mean, I remember going to several of their concerts, but then it seemed like Katie, our daughter, when she was in high school, Indigo Girls were the rage. So I think they must have been popular for many years because I think I remember as a young adult loving them. And then
Probably a little bit
Katie,
later. I think they're more late 80s than
okay, so then I'm wrong. I just remember thinking they
if
were
you remember
great.
them when you were younger, that's impressive.
I knew them before they even
Before
got
they ever
started.
known, when they were just toddlers.
So it had to be through Katie, but
Yeah,
Katie just went to an Indigo Girls concert and she said it was kind of sad because the lead singer, I can't remember her name, couldn't sing at all anymore. So, but
Emily.
she said, yeah, she said they had somebody that was, you know, also singing that was
Yeah,
new to the
yeah.
group.
It's
So
kind of sad, right, when your favorite performers'
I
voices
know,
start to go.
I know, for sure, for
How about
sure.
did you have a favorite album?
You know, I never bought albums, I got to be honest. And so I can't say, I was a more one song. I do remember the first um, record I bought. What would that be? 8 millimeter? Well, what were the small
45. 45.
45s? And it was Three Dog Nights. One is the loneliest
Oh, that's a
number.
great song.
And I remember going with girlfriends. This was probably in seventh or eighth grade. And we went to the local record store, and I think I bought it for 85 cents. I don't know why
Yeah.
that sticks out in my
Yeah.
head, but oh, I love that song. I played it over and over and over again. But albums, I'm sure there are many great ones that I've listened to over the years, but nothing that I
When I
purchased
was
or
in high school in New Jersey,
yeah.
we had a jukebox installed in our cafeteria,
Okay.
and I remember one was played on that all the time.
Oh my gosh, I know, I know. And what's oh God, when I was in high school, there's a song, Girls in White Satin, or what was that?
Nights in White Set.
Nights, Girls in White Satin.
That's a new variation. The
Just
Moody
like,
Blues, Nights in White Satin.
oh God, just like the girl with colitis goes by. And, that was
Yep.
my other one. But yes, that song, to this day, if that comes on the radio, which happens very infrequently, I can't stand it. It was just played so
Oh, because it
much.
was overplayed. It's not that the song's
Oh,
bad.
oh, and I don't think I ever loved it, but
Oh,
it
okay.
was just so overplayed.
So
But
I think you're the counterpoint to him. I had my brother on. I asked him his favorite. I think he mentioned Nights in White Sadness.
he didn't.
Yeah.
Are you
Oh,
kidding
yeah.
me?
I'm not. No, it's one
Oh
of the.
my gosh. That's hysterical. Yeah, I can't stand that song to this day. So,
Okay.
yeah, not good.
All right. What sports do you enjoy watching?
Oh, no, no, no. You can't skip your latest concert.
Oh, okay. What was the last concert you attended?
Well, I mean, you don't go off script here, buddy. But
Thank you
first
for
of
keeping me
all,
on track here.
I wanted to mention I saw the Beatles, but I also saw Michael Jackson do his Thriller tour. So I felt like that was
Okay.
pretty cool as well. Those two big ones. But the last concert I went to was with you, and it was Crane Wives, and it was the best possible surprise ever. Well, first of all, the venue, Meyer Garden, was fantastic, and we just had a really fun overnight there. But man, they really knocked it out of the park. I'm a fan now. I'd love to see them again.
So to give you an example of how social Jerry is, that the hotel we were staying in, it turned out that both of the parents for the two women in the band were there, and she went up immediately was befriending them and
Yeah.
chatting them up.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, that the whole concert, because Stan had told us, yeah, they're a folk group. And I'm like, okay. And we're in line, and oh my gosh, there's all these eccentric dressed people and a lot of gay people, trans people. I mean, it was anything but our age folkers, right? So I'm like, are you sure, Stan? And Stan goes, well, it's been quite a few years. But anyway, the concert was anything but folk music. So, but great, really fun.
The group she's talking about called the Crane Wives, and that venue
Yeah,
was the Frederick Meyer Garden in Grand Rapids, where we
right.
had a great time. All
Yeah.
right, sorry to skip that over, but you've
Okay.
set me straight.
I
So
did. I
now,
did.
what sports do you enjoy watching?
Well, this will be short and sweet because you know me. I talk through any game, and I'm sure people are annoyed by me because I don't really pay attention to sports all that much. But if I have to watch sports on television, it would be college football. And of course, U of M is one of our favorites. And I'm sort of getting into the Lions a little bit. That's kind of been
Yeah.
fun. They're a much better team. And baseball, I like to go to a baseball game, especially the Tigers. And we were just in Chicago and took our grandson Jack to see the Cubs. So, teams that baseball teams in person, but to watch a baseball game on television,
Oh.
no.
And you
So
went to a lot of U of M baseball games, did you not?
We did. We did. That's a new thing that Kyle and I have started doing. Football is football there, of course, but they have so many sports that are great and cheap. You can get into a U of M baseball game for like $4. And we knew a guy that was playing for them, my daughter-in-law's cousin. And so it was fun to go to the games and just cheer him on. But we've been to volleyball games now, women's basketball, gymnastic tournaments, and they're all fun and really inexpensive. So yeah.
And when we say U of M, we're referring to University of Michigan in Ann Arbor.
That's a good thing you say that because when I go out east with my daughter being in Boston and I say, "Oh yeah, I graduated," they love to tell you where they graduated from. But I always say U of M and they're like, "What?"
So now you mentioned you went to a lot of Cubs games. So I'll see, did you have a favorite athlete from back then or since?
Oh, of course. So yes, I was a bleacher bum. It was a buck. And we would hang out, score keep through the whole game, which cracks me up. I have a lot of my old scorecards, but then we would wait for the players to leave the stadium. And at that time, it was Ron Santo and Ernie Banks who were like super famous. And I remember well, as you said, I'm social and kind of unabashed and unafraid. So I remember running after Ernie Banks in his car down the street as fast as I could. And he was so nice. He rolled down the window and signed my card. It was crazy. So
Only you would do that.
I know. But the fun story I have from
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
the uh, um, opening game in 1969, the Cubs opener. Of course, I'm in eighth grade at the time. And I decide I want to go to that game. And, my parents aren't going to give me permission to do that, but I'm going to that game. And so I came up with this elaborate scheme to ditch school. And I honestly thought it worked. I had my two older brothers call me out sick and say they were my dad. And then all my best friends, they did the same thing. So there were like 5 calls to the school that morning by my brothers taking turns, calling my friends out, sick. Why they agreed to do that, I don't know. But we go off to the game. We have a marvelous time the next day. And this school is run by nuns. So you can imagine the next day over the loudspeaker, will Jeri McCambridge and Missy Costello and all the people come to the office? Like, oh shit, we're busted. And oh gosh, they called me in and did I get the lecture? We thought you were a leader and we would have never believed you would have done anything like this. And we're so disappointed in you. And I mean, that's all they had to do. And I was wrecked. I was like, okay, I'm sorry. But anyway, it was probably the most courageous thing I've ever done.
And
It's
how did
ditch
they
school.
know you had gone to the game?
Oh, they figured it out. Like I said, and maybe they didn't. Yeah, I think they probably figured out we went to the game, but it was so obvious that my brothers were calling,
Yeah, yeah.
5 of my best friends in. So
It's not
yeah, it
like you
wasn't.
appeared on TV during the
No, no,
game.
we weren't on the kiss cam. No.
Okay.
I don't even know if they did that back
No,
then.
no. Well,
Probably not.
69 was a fateful year for the Cubs.
Yeah,
They had a big lead. It looked like they were gonna go on and win their division, and then
it all
unfortunately
fell
it
apart.
fell apart and the Miracle Mets won instead.
Oh no, no. Yeah. When is the last time the Cubs won? It's
Well,
got,
they won the World
yeah, it
Series
wasn't, yeah. When was that?
2016.
Yeah,
2016.
yeah. So it wasn't that long
So
ago.
the curse was finally broken since 1908, right? Or
Oh
something like
my God.
it was
It's
1908. Yeah.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah. It was, well, we live close. I lived right next to Lincoln Park, in Chicago. So it was easy to get to the games. So it was fun.
All right, moving on to comedy. Do you have a
Yes.
favorite comedian or a comedy film or show?
Yes. Stephen Colbert is probably one of our favorite comedians. We love his show, and he's such a visual comic. He can take on different people and he just, I don't know, he's amazing. How when he does his opening monologue, he just is very entertaining. And then I'm going to mention the one that everybody's mentioning, and it would be Steve Martin. I mean, I don't know. Growing up, I also actually saw him. Were you with me? Probably not, but I saw him play the banjo in a casino in Detroit. How weird is that?
Oh, well, I've
But
seen him on stage with the Steep Canyon Rangers, but I not
yeah.
haven't seen him in a casino.
Yeah, I saw him in a casino in Detroit. But anyway, just his movies. Like one of my favorite movies of all time is Roxanne. I just love that movie. Found it very endearing and that's the thing with Steve Martin. He's funny, but he's also endearing. Like you just love him, and Father of the Bride and Parenthood and in fact, our grandkids were here. And I don't know if you remember the song they sang when you're sliding into first and you feel a juicy
Yes,
burst
I do.
diarrhea. Well, we went through the whole song and Cece and Sophie and I remember doing this with Katie's family too. We're dying of laughter. And now, little Cece, when you're sliding into first, she's singing the diarrhea song. But anyway, that stuck with me all those years, And so he just has a way of, making you laugh.
How about a TV show? Any favorite comedy show?
Um, hmm. Comedy show. I think back in the day, like the Lucille Ball
Hmm.
show, and
Yeah,
it seemed like back then there were more shows that sort of were comedy focused.
right.
Now I don't know. What's your
Not much
favorite?
left. I mean, since Curb
Yeah.
Your Enthusiasm ended and Seinfeld, those are the two.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It seemed like before there were a lot more shows that really focused on comedy, and I just don't feel that way as much anymore.
Not as much. No, the one that we recently watched, The Studio, had some great comic moments, and
Did you like? So we
oh,
tried, we
the final
tried.
episode is as hilarious as anything.
We watched it.
The final episode?
Yes,
Oh
yes.
wow, we were
I
we
don't
were
know.
falling
We
on the
we did
floor.
won all these awards and I don't know. I don't know. We
All right,
just
well,
it was just okay for us.
okay,
But I wanted to like it. Let's put it that way.
okay, but
Because it was so many things.
you went through the
Yeah.
whole series. All right. Well, some
Well,
people stopped.
honestly, we went through most of the series, stopped, and then based on your recommendation of the last one, we watched that.
And you didn't
So
find that funny.
yes, in parts, but not like I'm
Okay.
on the floor rolling.
Okay.
No,
All right.
no, no.
Good to know.
Yes.
All right. Time for you to tell a story.
You're not going to ask me who makes me
All
laugh.
right. I'll ask you that. Who's the best at making you laugh?
My children. My children make me laugh. And I think it's because we have so much shared history. And then, of course, Kyle makes me laugh. But yeah, when our kids are together, when all of us are together, we laugh a lot. And it's not always the case, but a good deal of the time. So yeah, kids
All
make me
right.
laugh.
And then who do you make laugh?
Well, I think I'm pretty funny because, well, I was voted class clown. That's
Okay.
my claim to fame in high
Yeah.
school. But I don't know. Yeah, I think I make them laugh, or we just have these kind of witty exchanges back and forth. But I think I make friends laugh, and friends make me laugh. So yeah, I'm quick to laugh. Let's put it that way, and quick
Except
to
when you're watching the last episode of the
yeah,
studio.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe it's slapstick humor, kind of. I
Yeah.
don't always
There was
appreciate
physical
that.
humor in there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I appreciate Colbert, and he's a physical
Yeah.
humorist.
Yeah.
But yeah, not slapstick.
Well, you're the
No,
second one to name Colbert in the last 2 days. So the interview I did yesterday,
really.
Colbert was there.
Well,
There you go.
and I would love to go see him, but I figure the line will be,
Oh,
before
yeah.
he's done in May. But yeah, figure the line
All
will
right.
be crazy.
All right, before I move on, is there any
Yeah.
question that I skipped that you might make sure
No,
you
I
answer?
think you're good. I think you're good.
All right, just want to be careful that I didn't gloss over anything. All
Yeah.
right, now it's time for a story. Which story have you
Yeah.
selected?
Well, I kind of combined two. Let's see. What did I combine? I combined an achievement that I was proud of and an unlikely situation that I found myself in. And it has to do with my time at the DDA. And, probably a year after I joined the DDA, COVID hit. And I remember Lori and I had a little basement office, and we were down in our office, and there were all these rumblings about COVID, but everybody was still very unaware, what was going to happen. So we're down in our office, we're working away, and all of a sudden Lori starts calling upstairs to the first floor, and nobody's answering, nobody's answering. She's like, "What the heck? What's going on?" So she goes upstairs, lights out. She comes back downstairs and she goes, "Nobody's up there and the lights are off." And I'm like, "Really?" And so she goes to the police station, is down there. She goes to the police station. She's like, "What's going on?" And she goes, "Oh, you didn't hear? Nobody bothered to tell us. They're evacuating the building for COVID. Take your computers." And I mean, it was really dramatic. And so Lloyd and I just working away, and we didn't even have laptops, so we had desktops. So I remember it was quite a time where, now what are we going to do to keep this place afloat? But the thing that transitioned from that is the shutting down of the streets in downtown Northville. And our businesses were struggling, and so we had this huge fundraiser, and this guy, Manfred Schoen, spearheaded it. And we built these outdoor kiosks all over town where people could gather and stay warm. We had heaters in them, and then we had kiosks where businesses could come out and sell their stuff because they were shutting down the restaurants and they were shutting down shops. So our businesses were, really scared and not doing well. And this all happened. And then we did a social district where people could buy alcohol and walk around on the streets. And this all happened very quickly in a matter of months. And it was just this really amazing time where people were so desperate to socialize and be amongst people and dine out that this experiment worked. I mean, we had all the restaurants were out on the streets because we had shut them down, and they had tents and we had heaters, and people were in winter coats eating dinner outside, and are congregating in these areas where they could have a beer and a snack and just being with friends outside. And anyway, I'm just really really proud of that because we did not during that time lose one restaurant, and the shops remained viable, the restaurants remained viable, and it was just quite an amazing time. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Although it's now morphed into a lot of drama because they wanted to keep the streets closed indefinitely, and there was a big lawsuit. But anyway, during that period of time, it was amazing. And the other thing I'm proud of is that I really did work to improve our community and our city for 20 years of my life and had a lot of fun doing it, but was pretty committed to downtown Northville and keeping it vibrant. So that was a good thing.
All right, we got a couple of stories I'm going to tell.
Okay.
All right, the first one dates back to when our boys were still in high school together, and they
Okay.
were part of a singing group at Northville High
Yes.
School called Backbeat. It was
Yep.
eight-man a cappella group, and Roger and Greg were members of that. And
Amazing.
the choir director, Mary Kay, was the woman who I had tried to convince to so that their group should sing some songs that I thought I put a tape together, I gave it to her, and she actually selected just one of like the dozen songs that I suggested, and that song was Last Month of the Year.
Yes.
And so they worked that up and they were going to sing that at the Christmas concert. But before the Christmas concert, as you mentioned to start, you were born on December 5th.
Right.
And so my wife Barb decided that it would be a good idea if she could ask Mary Kay if they could that the Backbeat could work up a version of that for Jeri's birthday. So instead of tell me when was Jesus born? The first line was, tell me when was Jeri born?
Yep,
And
it's
so
amazing.
they worked up a version of it. They worked it up, and we met Kyle and Jeri at Rebecca's downtown, which is ironic given that Kyle now refuses to eat
To
there.
eat there.
I don't think he's eaten there since then.
I don't think he has. That's so funny. I didn't
But
think about that.
nonetheless, we were having lunch there, I think.
Yeah.
And then in comes Backbeat to surprise Jeri, and they ran into the rendition of When Was Jeri Born? And that was a hit, I think. So Barb did
Oh,
good
it
with
was
that.
so special and so fun. And I was so shocked. And I think at that time they were good, right? They were really, really good, not just because they were our kids. But we were all such fans, and it was so much fun to anytime they performed to listen to them. But singing a birthday song for me was amazing. And I'm
And this
grateful.
the second story involves an incident that occurred when our daughter Tracy was living here and working, and she was the last one to leave the house on a day when the water had gone out in Northville, and
Uh,
she had
this is
managed
really
to.
not funny, but it's
It's not a
funny.
funny story, but it's a story of how you helped us out, right?
Yeah,
What kind of
yeah.
a friend you are. So these she came home from work at 4 in the afternoon and there was water running out the front door. And she called Barb and she said, There's a flood. There's a flood in the house. And so finally, Barb said to Teresa, Well, go upstairs and turn off the water. So she had left the water slightly on in her sink, but then when the water came back on, it came in, and the sink was slightly stopped up with her hair and it overflowed, and we had a disaster. So
When you
the
did, it
water
was
was
a
everywhere.
disaster. Yeah.
So anyway, I get a call. I get a call at work. You better come home. You better come home. Well, what's going on? Well, there's a flood. Well, maybe it's not that bad. I came home and it was pretty bad. I'm looking at the situation, and then Barb calls up Jeri and says, "Do you have some towels? We need some
That is
towels."
the funniest part of the story.
And
Why,
so Jeri,
Barb? Well, we have a little water problem. Just bring, as many beach towels as you can bring. I'm like, okay.
so you came over and you assessed the situation was beyond what the towels could solve.
Like, but you forget we pull up and there's towels lining your driveway that are already drying. And I am like, I walk in the house, I'm like, 10 beach towels, 40 beach towels are not going to deal with this. And I remember standing in your foyer going, oh gosh, guys, we got to call an emergency water place. And I happen to know one because of working for the chamber. But as we're standing in your foyer, the ceiling caves in. Like, oh my
Right. Ceiling fell down right in front of us. Like Kyle and
God.
I were standing there and fell down. I go, that's not
Oh,
good.
no, 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 no. None of it was good. Oh
So we
gosh.
got that emergency company to come out, and the next few days it was kind of like being a scene from E.T. They
It
had
was.
plastic walls, and it was something, but we survived that. I
You
always thought
did.
at the back of my mind, though, it was a subtle plot that Barb and Tracy had hatched in order to get a new kitchen.
I was just gonna say, Barb came out ahead in the deal because she got a new
Got a new
kitchen.
kitchen out
And
of it. So
but
at any
I
rate,
remember even being in your basement and all your games, everything. It was just such a mess. I mean, I've never seen water damage like that and hope to never again.
I hope we never experience that
Yeah.
again either.
Yeah. So now Kyle checks on your house on
That's
occasion.
right. Just so
Oh,
you don't have to bring any more towels over.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
So
Those
anyway,
are,
that's just the sort of friend that Jeri is. He'll come to rescue of just about anybody. Been a great friend to every one of your friends, and that's
oh,
a tribute to you.
thank you, Stan. Well, you make it easy. You're our, schemer, you're our director. You just really make friendships happen because we're always getting together, which I love. So it's great.
So Jeri, thanks for being my guest today.
You're
It's been a
welcome.
pleasure, and we'll wrap it up there.
Yeah, it's been an honor. Thank you, Stan. I appreciate it.